the last thing I will say about applying ASCA to trafficking survivors is we do emphasize the anonymity of the meeting. So people do not have to identify specific people, places, if they're worried about outing specific businesses or places and being sought after. We really do allow survivors to keep their lives anonymous in that way. So we don't allow people to talk about what they heard in the meeting outside of the meeting. And that's really important, I think, for survivors to know that their stories will be held in confidence. So with that, are there any questions about our story, the model of adult survivors of child abuse? While folks are probably typing, I will show you the ASCAsupport.org website. So ASCA has these meeting resources here. That's where you heard the audio. You can listen to a whole meeting if you'd like. There's also a PowerPoint tour. In this meeting resources, you will find how to start a meeting, materials that you need, so the files that you'll need, you can just download them and print them. You just need to create an account on our website, and you can download all the files for starting a meeting, including our Survivor to Thriver manual. You can download it, or you can buy it online for about $20. We also have listed here events and meetings around the nation. There aren't that many. We're trying to start more right now. And for those of you who there aren't meetings in your area, you can contact us in order to start one, or you can share. There's an online forum and e-meeting so that survivors can talk online. So any questions for us? We have about 20 minutes before we ask you to do a online evaluation.
Yeah, that is a great question. Actually, it's not a silly question at all. I could share a little bit of my personal experience of that very same thing. So I started attending meetings and started having recovering memories of really severe abuse, of being raped and beaten and physically tortured. And I remember a woman talking about not being loved. And I had a bunch of feelings about, like, wow, like I wish, that had just been my experience. And it took me a couple of years to realize that not being loved is like the deepest wound ever, because not being loved is the human contact that we need as children to feel okay as adults. And so I gained a ton of respect for someone coming to the meeting and processing trauma about not being loved. And I also, from my own experience, came to the meeting thinking that my trauma was not enough to be there. And I have heard people talk over and over and over again about coming to meetings and feeling like their trauma was not significant. And I have to say, any kind of trauma, any kind of feeling from childhood abuse, or any kind of feeling from childhood, feeling unloved, feeling not listened to, feeling like you were made to be not important is all trauma. It's all trauma that brings up a feeling in you that doesn't feel good. And to come to a room and talk about how you weren't listened to is just as important and just as vital as someone coming and talking about being sexually abused. The meeting actually is super open and a very great holding environment for someone to come and talk about any type of abuse, whether it's not being loved or not being treated fairly to being sexually abused or tortured. They're both equally important and create some of the same feelings. So, great question.
Also, in the Ask a Survivor to Thriver manual, we do have folks, there's a checklist and there's questions that ask people, have you ever felt worthless? Has anybody ever made you feel ashamed? And so there are questions and so-called guidelines, but really it's about, did you get your needs met as a child? And we allow each individual to define what abuse means for them. So we very much challenge any comparison of so-and-so's abuse was worse than so-and-so, and really value anybody's experience of this didn't meet my needs. So Vanessa, your question is, have we had any experience with multicultural support groups? So we haven't had any meetings with people with different language capacities. Unfortunately, right now it's all in English. We are looking to translate our materials into Spanish, but we're trying to make sure that translating it to Spanish keeps the same meaning. As you might know, translation has its difficulties, but we have not had meetings with people there might be people who speak different languages, but they also speak English. So the online resources at askasupport.org are definitely there for survivors where ASCA does not exist. So people can share online and download the Survivor to Thriver manual. And then we'll definitely provide support to anybody who wants to start their own meeting. So we are looking to expand, but right now we don't have the financial resources to do so.
There's also, I don't know if we just mentioned that, there's also an online forum for people to share their stories back and forth online at the website, which I have gone on, and it's very helpful.
And I think I was thinking about what folks said at the beginning about what drew them to the webinar, and in order to support survivors in becoming leaders, I think the biggest thing is helping them address the shame and their own self-concept. So I think being abused, you really believe that you're not worth anything, and so providing a space for survivors to take that step into leadership and to share what comes up, but push them to dive into that is really important, because once they see that they can do something, I think that really challenges those negative self-concepts. Well, if there isn't anything else, we do hope that you fill out the evaluation that Ashka sent out to everyone, and we are very appreciative that you joined us in whatever time zone you're in. And please do feel free to email us. And if you have any further questions in the future, we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as we can.